Hello there and welcome to our L24 special coverage over the Ukraine-Russia war, the so-called special military operation. President Vladimir Zelensky has removed the head of Ukraine's security services, Ivan Bakanov, and the prosecutor general, Irina Vandikutova, and announced that hundreds of criminal investigations for suspected treason and collaboration activities were underway. The deputy head of presidential office clarified Monday that and had been suspected, and Zelensky would decide whether to formally dismiss them after further investigation. On the battlefield, Russian shelling struck a two-story building on Torchok city, Donetsk region, early Monday, killing at least 6 people. Ukrainian emergency services reported 3 people were pulled alive from the rubble, one of whom later died in hospital. To analyze all this information, I'm joined live by Mr. Abdel Nour Toumi, an international relations expert and specialist in the Maghreb studies from France, and Dr. Gulraz Sheikh, geopolitical analyst from India. Gentlemen, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to this debate. The discussion begins right after this break. And before we delve into our discussion, let me read for you this piece of information. Ukraine's State Emergency Service stated a Russian shell smashed into a two-story building in the eastern Ukrainian town of Torchok on Monday. The bombing left at least 6 civilians dead as they were sheltering there. The emergency service said on Facebook that rescuers found 5 bodies in the rubble and pulled 3 people out alive, but one later on died in hospital. Mr. Toumi, since you are in Europe, I'll be starting with you. Well, looking to the battlegrounds map, it is clearly seen that the main focus of the clash in Ukraine now is in the eastern part of the country. And Russia is also putting more power over the southern side as well. Russian troops are claiming taking a full control over all the regions over there. But Ukraine keep denying. So what is close to be true?
Good afternoon, sir, and thank you for having me. Just a quick note about my affiliation. Actually, I'm an expert Maghreb studies at Arsam Center, a think tank based in Ankara, which stands for Middle East Studies. Yes, to answer to your question, now after 5 months of the ongoing war, and as we early in the broke of the war, or at that time of the special operation launched by Russia, we predicted that it's going to be a long war. And since that moment, there were about 2 steps or 2 phases, and now the conflict or the war is entering into its 3rd phase. That is changing totally the dynamic in the within the conflict itself between the 2 belligerents, and also having its impact on the region and to some extent on the international level. So this has, from the Ukrainian side, they did have, I would say, early in the conflict, a good resistance that also created a panic moments on the adversary side from the Russians that they were not, they misunderstood or miscalculated their operation that they thought is going to be quick and fast. It turned out to be long. Now, and also the communication war that was in favor of the Ukrainian, and notably the Ukrainian President Zelensky, who has still has been using this until the latest development that is, I would say it's like a Big Bang and will be a turning point in the conflict when he fired his intelligence chief and the AG, the Attorney General of the country, in light of the ongoing investigation that they were not that loyal to him. On the other side, the Russians did indeed panic in first step, but then when they shifted their strategy in the second phase of the conflict, when they focused, and then they thought that's going to be too long and it's not going anywhere, so they focused on the east side and pressured the Ukrainian to the south. Meanwhile, launching or continuing to launch their shock and awe operation, that on the Ukrainian public opinion. So now the impact of this ongoing war is affecting great deal the entire world. And now we saw this gun went from energy crisis to food crisis to security crisis. And so we saw in the latest also, the late weeks, main development took place from the G20 in Indonesia to the G7 in Germany to the NATO summit and so on. And then, of course, maybe we will talk later about the Jeddah summit and now today's tripartite summit, Tehran summit.
Perfect. So, we come to this point. Sorry to cut your train of thoughts. Mr. Gurlaz, you are in Asia, as I am in Africa, so we do have a different understanding to the situation in Ukraine and in general in the whole European continent. So, in your point of view, what is your read into the situation over there?
As far as the Russian army is concerned, initially they didn't perform well at all. But right now, when the war of attrition is going on, Ukraine can't survive in front of them. And already we are seeing that the West has started taking back steps. First, it came from Lithuania. What they did, they were blockading the supply of goods on name of EU sanctions to Kaliningrad, which is basically a part of Russia. Then it was a threat by Vladimir Putin and Russia, and they have to take the back steps. And now they are allowing the passage of goods and services via train to Kaliningrad. Then we have also seen panic in Germany when the Nord Stream 1 was stopped by Russia first on the name of those spare parts from Canada, which Siemens has to receive. Then Canada gave special permission for 2 years that these spare parts won't be won't be taken under sanctions so that they can have them back. Now then they started on the name of maintenance, and now they are saying that up till 21st of this month there won't be any gas, and there is possibility even after 21st they won't start. So there is a panic there in Germany. Plus the sanctions have also boomeranged there. The economy of Russia has not been hurt in the way the economy of West has been hurt, particularly that of Europe. We are seeing high inflation. We have also noticed that today the price of euro is less than that of US dollar, which was always higher. So,
quite understood. It's a very good point to be raised.
Economically also the sanctions has failed. And why the sanctions has failed? Because they were the East. See, today the world is shifting from West to East. So East is not obeying those sanctions. Let it be India, let it be China, or let it be the countries of Middle East. The Gulf countries, they are not respecting those sanctions, and they are trading and dealing with Russia. So even the country like Saudi Arabia, which is oil surplus, is buying oil, discounted oil from Russia and selling it to the international market. So the sanctions have boomeranged. So in the war of attrition, definitely Ukraine will lose. It was bound to lose. And another side of Zelensky is also there in front of us. He is jailing the political opponents. He is banning the opposition parties and media outlets. He is also prosecuting the general prosecutor.
Understood.
He is also removing the ambassador.
Mr. Gurlaz.
He is behaving like an autocrat.
Perfect, understood. We will come to this point step by step. Mr. Chumi, don't you think that now the war is taking another phase? It's the war of the whole continent in Europe, and other countries might and probably must joined this war. What are you saying about this?
So yes, it is now, the war entered its third phase, but this, it's become an economic war, actually, whether we say it explicitly or implicitly, but it is real that the war, the Ukraine war has impacted a great deal the European, and notably the European Union, and the beginning, again, bring this to the early of the crisis, that they thought President Putin did bring them together. I mean, by this, he reunited the Europeans. But the Europeans, what they did, they just did, toward the Ukrainian, the least we can do approach. But now this is, again, and the Europeans, when they went through the 7th package of sanctions, they thought they could kneel President Putin down or put him in the corner. It turned out, the opposite. Now that the boomerang effect is affecting the Europeans. And we saw this, these days, how Italian Prime Minister, Mr. Draghi, is in Algiers, and the President of the year, Mohammed bin Zayed, in Paris, and how he was, welcomed yesterday in Paris, and the trip of the President of the European Commission to Azerbaijan yesterday. So all this dynamic is showing that the Europeans are not that united as they showed. They showed their public opinions, because the message in the beginning was not sent to President Putin, because they know well they couldn't keep up with him, but they just, keeping the pressure domestically, trying to send a message to the public opinion. Now these public opinions are starting to get it, and they are saying what we are going to do next fall and next winter. It's going to be very harsh winter and severe winter. This is why today, especially France, Germany, Italy, and let's say the classic Roman Europeans, and we saw that the divided Europeans between Anglo-Saxons, for instance, like the UK, who showed their toughness and their bold positions decided with the Americans. But meanwhile, the Europeans, Roman Europeans, as Donald Rumsfeld, late Secretary of Defense, American Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, portrayed them in the rush of the invasion of Iraq in 2003 by calling them old and new Europe. So old Europe today is totally in panic mode and is reviewing its strategy and even its policy toward Russia.
Thank you, Mr. Abdon. Now moving on to the second point. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has dismissed two important figures in his government, questioning their leadership, qualities and loyalty, and accusing many of the subordinates of treason and collaborating with Russia.
Станом на сьогодні
651 criminal proceedings have been registered for treason of the state and collaboration activities by employees of prosecutors' offices, judicial institutions and other law enforcement agencies in the case of 198 criminal proceedings.
Mr. Gurlas, in type of war, it's preferable not to put pressure and accusation over your deputies. Why now, after almost 6 months, Zelensky takes this move? And he also said that Prime Minister would be tasked with intensifying the search for a new head of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau.
Mr. Abdul Karim, I had been saying all these things since the war began. And I was saying that Mr. Zelensky possesses all the qualities of a perfect autocrat. He is doing all those things which Mr. Vladimir Putin is doing that in Russia. And if you look at his political career, he won the election by false promising of integration of Russian-speaking people in the mainstream, and then he even took whatever they were having in the terms of government powers and government subsidies and integration. So he is also one of the perfect autocrat like Mr. Putin is. So things are going on those lines. There is no democracy at now in Ukraine, but the world is saying that he is fighting for democracy.
Perfectly understood. Now, let's try to tackle another situation. EU foreign ministers signed off 500 billion million more in military aid for Ukraine as top EU diplomat Joseph Borrell stressed the effectiveness of sanctions on Russia on Monday. The aid decision came after a video debriefing on the latest development by Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, who said that it was grateful for new funds, which brings the EU total to 2.5 billion euros, but still urged the 27 nations to provide more.
Russia is trying to destroy Ukraine and the Ukrainian nation, and at the same time unleashing a global food and energy crisis. The ministers were unanimously agreeing on the need to continue stand firmly with Ukraine and to lend Ukraine with all our support in its fight for freedom and independence. Ukraine needs more arms. We will provide them.
Mr. Chumi, you are living in Europe and you are aware about the situation over there. Don't you really think that the war in Ukraine is really harmful for Europe more than any other continent? And US, on the other side, is only pushing the escalation forward, as this war serves its cause, which is first creating a united front against the military rival Russia, and secondly to weaken the EU economy, which is also a competitor to US economy. I mean, two birds with one stone. This is why they want the war to go as long as they want. And this is why they keep using a suicidal policy of sanctions. Don't you agree with that? Now euro is kind of less than $1.
No, I totally agree with that. And also, as I said earlier, so the Europeans did, I would say, try just to make it like as if they can stand to Putin, to President Putin, on the rhetoric side. But they know well they cannot keep up because, and then we know that in the developments of this war in the first 2-3 months, it turned out to be a proxy war, and the US is also trying to finish what it didn't finish with the Soviet Union, which was kind of in the approach of the extension of the Cold War by other means. And this is why now today, the real, I would say, short-term winner is definitely the US, who are first of all geographically far away from the conflict, but economically, militarily are fully involved, and also they are getting, a lot benefit from the European crisis in terms of energy. Now the Americans will be providing gas and so on to European countries, plus the machinery, the weaponry machine. So the industry complex American is today cheering for the war to continue, and we know this war will be, will continue, and even if it will make some, like let's say some breaks or something like that, will be portrayed as one of those frozen conflicts. But in the short term, Europe today, and again, they are panicking and they don't know how they will be facing these, I say, food crisis, energy crisis in the next coming months. And this is why, as I said earlier, how the European Commission flew yesterday to Baku, the visit of Ben Zayed these 2 days here in Paris, it's unbelievably empiric, and also the visit of Italian Prime Minister to Algeria. And so, but it turned out that the Europeans are not that coherent as they sounded. They are, now it's the imperative of the integral process. It turned out to be bilateral, and again, told the Ukrainian, now it's only just, I would say, rhetoric, okay, keep fighting, keep resisting, we will find you, we will send you weapons. How? We don't know, because in the end of the day, They know that their policy, the sanction policy, didn't work, and we all know that from the beginning it's not going to work. And President Putin knew very well how the European will react, and also this is why from day one of the conflict he used the gas card, and now he is using the wheat card as well by blocking the harbors in the south of Ukraine, to the Black Sea.
Perfect, understood. Now, let's tackle another information. Russian President Vladimir Putin travels to Tehran for talks with his Iranian and Turkish counterparts on several issues, among them the Syrian issue. Bilateral relations, regional and global matters are also expected to be discussed in this Tehran summit. The meeting also comes as Recep Tayyip Erdogan seeks to finalize a deal to allow for the exports of trapped Ukrainian grain. Mr. Gurnaz, how can you explain the efforts made so far by the Turkish government to release the grain shipment in the Black Sea, and why there isn't another country could have done the same as Turkey? I mean, what is special about its position in this war between the West and the East, as Putin claimed?
See, the real estate which Turkey controls, it's a bridge between West and East, Europe and Asia, and to be very particular, Middle East and Asia. So whoever controls that, the Straits of Bosphorus, it controls the entire trade to Europe. And who controls that? It is Turkey. So they are playing their cards very well. They are, and even during the Cold War, I say Cold War I, the Turks were playing their cards very well. Sometimes they were appeasing Russians, and sometimes they were appeasing Americans, and they were taking benefit out of both the parties. And it's very much normal phenomenon in geopolitics. Any country will do it. And right now, the three state heads, that is Iranian state head, the Turkish state head, as well as Vladimir Putin, they will be meeting together in Tehran. So it is a direct message to the West by Vladimir Putin. You can say that it is hurting them where it hurts the most, because the arch rival of America, especially in the Middle East region, is Iran. And one of the member of NATO is Turkey. So Putin is sitting with both the arch rival as well as the ally of the United States, that is Turkey and Iran. So it's a very strong message that we are having both your foe and your friend with us. And if you are going to play a proxy war against us, there can be another proxy war which we can play in Syria or even other countries of Middle East. So it's a very clear message, and I am telling since very long that I am looking at the formation of an axis. The axis starts from Russia, Turkey, Iran, and China. So it's a large axis, and the world will be divided into two finally, and one part will be West, and another axis will be these four, plus some more countries.
Perfect. Mr. Abdel Noor Toumi, as kind of outside the questions list, Biden's tour in the Middle East is to convince Saudi Arabia of the need to increase global oil supplies, to ease the energy crisis sparked by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and to reinforce U.S. position in the region. So, to this point, do you think that U.S., with its strong ties with the Zionist entity, will stop the influence of China in the Middle East?
That's a good point. Actually, the visit of President Biden to the Zionist state and to London, he flew from there to Saudi Arabia, who attended the Jeddah summit that had the GCC plus Iraq, Jordan, and Egypt. Actually, it was a failure by all means, but some analysts did qualify this as with the sour, sweet flavor of the U.S. And now the U.S. doesn't have any credibility in the region since the invasion of Iraq in 2003, and later when they withdraw from Iraq under the Obama administration, and we can extend that all the way to Afghanistan after the debacle of the withdrawal last year. So as far as the U.S. Middle East policy now, President Biden, I think he lost the momentum that the Democrats had before him, like Jimmy Carter, and then it was launched by Bill Clinton. Even though Obama tried to position himself in that posture, but it didn't work well. But now Biden, he's just actually continuing what an unconventional Republican president, by this, former President Donald Trump did, and he focused, like in a visit of Biden to the region, focused on two elements: the security of the Zionist state and the oil. And then I repeat it from here: oil. And so we saw that actually in the G summit, that footage of President Macron running to President Biden, asking him, when you go to Riyadh, go to Saudi Arabia, don't forget to emphasize or speak or even beg Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Mr. Toumi, I'm sorry to cut your train of thought, Mr. Toumi, but don't you think that this summit made in Iran, between Iran and Turkey, as well as Putin, which is Russia, just as a reaction to Biden's tour to the Middle East? Iran is creating another anti-war against the U.S. because, as the media in Iran stated, the tour of Biden, it was an anti-Iranian tour.
To some extent, yes. That when we spoke about the integration of the Zionist state in the Arab corps, the message was clear. But yeah, definitely, today's three-party summit, Tehran summit between President Erdogan and President Raisi and President Putin, it is a clear message not only to the U.S. but to the entire Western sphere, that there is a new world order is taking place, and these three countries are shaping, and again, to some extent, are shuffling the cards of the world affairs. So this is why today, let's say, for instance, President Erdogan, who is going to have a bilateral meeting with President Putin of this three-party meeting, and Syria is on top of this. So it sounds like there is the extension of Astana 1, 2. So, and this is why Russia is indeed in the heart of the Middle East, so that China does play this, or does, let's say, perform, I would say, like discreetly and moving its pawns in the region without making any noises, whereas the US know that very well, and they are seriously threatened. Their interest is seriously threatened, and especially in the ongoing energy crisis, food crisis, and world affairs new horizon that is taking place. And I believe these three countries, especially Turkey, Iran, and Russia, they will make, again, a solid access with, extending their hands toward China and India and Pakistan, even though Pakistan are having domestic serious issues these days, but it's still a pivotal state in the region.
Thank you, Mr. Abdel-Nour.
Play a major role in all this dynamic of world affairs change.
Thank you, Mr. Abdel-Nour. We have reached the limit of our time. Mr. Gulraz Sheikh from India, Mr. Abdel-Nour Toumi from France, thank you ever so much for participating with us in this debate. Thank you, dear viewers, for keeping it here with us on L24 News. Take care of yourself and have a blessed day.